What if the knives had missed? What if Julius Caesar had walked out of the Senate alive on March 15th, 44 BC? He wasn't just another politician. He was dictator for life, undefeated in battle, worshipped by his soldiers, and feared by the men who stabbed him. In our history, 23 wounds ended it. But imagine they didn't. Would Rome still have become an empire? Would Augustus have ever existed? And what would Caesar have done to the men who tried to kill him? By the end of this, you'll see just how differently the entire ancient world could have turned out. Here's what we actually know. On March 15th, 44 BC, Caesar entered a Senate meeting at the Theatre of Pompey, surrounded by men who trusted him, including Brutus and Cassius. The first knife struck, then another. Ancient sources describe Caesar collapsing beneath a statue of his old rival Pompey, dead within minutes. That single moment sent Rome into chaos. Now, change one thing. The first strike misses. His guards react in time. Caesar survives, and Rome instantly becomes a very different place. But surviving creates a brand new problem for the conspirators. Brutus and Cassius hadn't just plotted, they'd openly attacked the most powerful man in Rome, and now he knew exactly who they were. Caesar wasn't only politically powerful, he commanded loyal veteran armies that had fought beside him across Gaul and through civil war. If Caesar lived, the real question wasn't whether he'd forgive them, it was how many of them would survive what came next. Before we continue, if this kind of history fascinates you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is where real history ends and speculation begins. Caesar had shown both ruthlessness and mercy before, which opens two very different paths. In one, he chooses stability, arresting the conspirators without mass executions, presenting himself as the only man capable of holding Rome together. In the other, he decides mercy was his mistake the first time. Brutus is executed, Cassius is executed, the Senate is purged, and Caesar's grip on Rome becomes absolute. Either way, the Republic is already in serious trouble. Here's the thing, Caesar wasn't planning to just sit in Rome anyway. Before the assassination, he'd already begun preparing a massive military campaign against Parthia, Rome's most dangerous eastern rival. If he survives, instead of hunting conspirators, he simply leaves Rome behind with his army and heads east, chasing one more legendary victory to add to Gaul in the Civil War. But here's where it gets genuinely uncertain. A victory over Parthia could make Caesar's power almost unchallengeable, a man who'd conquered both west and east. But a defeat could destroy everything just as fast, reviving his enemies and dragging Rome back into civil war. Caesar surviving the knives doesn't guarantee he wins, it just means history gets a second chance to break in a completely different direction. And here's someone this changes completely, a young man named Octavian who wasn't even in Rome the day of the assassination. In our real history, Caesar's death created the vacuum Octavian used to eventually become Augustus, Rome's first emperor. But if Caesar lives, there's no empty throne, no vacuum, no urgent reason for Octavian to step forward at all. He might simply remain a young man living quietly in Caesar's enormous shadow. And Cleopatra's story shifts too. In real history, Caesar's death eventually led to the alliance between Antony and Cleopatra, and that alliance collapsed at the Battle of Actium. If Caesar survives, that entire chain may never happen at all. His son with Cleopatra, Caesarion, might grow up under Caesar's direct protection instead of becoming a political target after his death, which raises an enormous question. Could Caesar have eventually made Caesarion his heir instead of Octavian? There's one final twist worth considering. Maybe Caesar's surviving doesn't save the Republic. Maybe it kills it faster. If the assassination attempt convinces Caesar that sharing power was his real mistake, he might eliminate every remaining rival, lean harder on his loyal army, and build a system with senators and elections in name only, while all real power stays with him alone. And when Caesar eventually did die, years or decades later, Rome would face the exact same question all over again. Who comes after Caesar? In our real history, Caesar's death didn't create an empire overnight. It unleashed the chain of events that eventually did. Brutus and Cassius fell, Antony and Octavian became rivals, Cleopatra entered the struggle and lost, and in 27 BC, Octavian became Augustus, and the Republic quietly disappeared. If this alternate history got you thinking, subscribe and share it with someone who loves a good what if. But if Caesar had walked out of that Senate alive, conquered Parthia, crushed his enemies, or built his own dynasty through Caesarion, the Rome we actually know might never have existed at all. Because sometimes history doesn't change when a king rises. Sometimes it changes the moment one man simply refuses to die.